as successful people, we've all heard this: be confident and have grit and desire and, all the things.
Yeah.
But when you go to put all those things into action, especially when you're leading people, it's a lot of pressure.
Our mind is our most powerful asset, and what we do with it really shapes who we become, what we do with our relationships, how we are successful in life and in our businesses.
Really digging into like who you are without the expectations of everyone else around you.
I think a lot of people in general and entrepreneurs have a hard time really thinking about where they want to go with their future, what they want to do, and it's a constant struggle and battle.
You want those things to come easily, the confidence, not doubting yourself, not comparing yourself to what other, business people are doing.
How do you tell your people to overcome these types of things?
There's always a lesson. There's always some sort of lesson to be learned.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm sitting here with Casey. You are a business consultant?
Business coach.
Business coach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And you work with entrepreneurs specifically, right?
Yes, I work with entrepreneurs and executives, mostly because my background in business, helping them with mindset tools and just building a life that feels meaningful to them without their business derailing their entire lives.
Yeah. So you could kind of be like a life coach as well.
Yes.
So what's the name of your company? When did you start it? And tell me a little bit about it.
So I've been doing this for 2 years.
Okay.
Prior to becoming a coach, I ran my family's business I went to CU for school, and so I moved back home to run my family's business. So fast forward 8 years, they owned an HOA management company.
Okay.
So I helped grow and run that, and pretty quickly, I guess I wouldn't say quickly, fast forward 8 years, realized that it just wasn't the thing I wanted to do with my life. I call it my quarter life crisis.
Quarter life crisis.
Yeah, had a quarter life crisis. It was bad. But yeah.
So, okay. And then so you branched out on your own and decided to start your own business.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And what's the name of it?
It's just my name. Casey.
Okay.
Yep, Casey Martin Coaching.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. And then how many clients do you have?
So I take a limited number of clients just so I can invest in them. So I do the one-on-one coaching, but I also do group coaching for businesses where the same mindset tools that I'm sharing with my clients, they're very much psychology, science-based, understanding how your brain works and how your brain holds you back from reaching your own potential. Things like fear and self-doubt and comparison and scarcity. And I also go into businesses and coach leadership teams and, entire teams on those same tools.
Oh, that's really
Very
interesting.
meaningful.
I love that because I feel like our mind is our most powerful asset, and what we do with it really shapes who we become, what we do with our relationships, how we are successful in life and in our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like, taking care of your mind every day is probably the most important thing that you can do, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that I do, I call them my EMBs, or my early morning behaviors.
Okay.
But I'm constantly giving myself affirmations and doing meditations and, journaling, stuff like that, thinking about the future. I know in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, one of the big points of it is you really got to use your mind to think. I think a lot of people in general and entrepreneurs have a hard time really thinking about where they want to go with their future, what they want to do, and it's a constant struggle and battle with, you said you had a quarter life crisis. I know I had kind of an early midlife crisis with where I wanted to go, and I do a lot of different things, but what do you see, and what are some of the things that you teach your clients and your business professionals on their mindset shift, or what they need to do to get better just in life in general?
So I think a lot of it is digging into our subconscious, and, as successful people, we've all heard this: be confident and have grit and desire and, all the things.
Yeah.
But when you go to put all those things into action, especially when you're leading people. It's a lot of pressure, and you're trying to figure it all out, and in your mind you want those things to come easily, the confidence, not doubting yourself, not comparing yourself to what other business people are doing. And I think really digging into your subconscious, getting to know yourself, look, what are my unique strengths, what do I value. I think a lot of us get stuck trying to fit into a box of what we think we're supposed to be doing. And I can relate to that. I ran my family's business for 8 years, and I have this saying that first life will throw pebbles, and then it'll throw rocks, and then it'll throw boulders.
Yeah.
And when you're not journaling, I journal a lot. Really digging into like who you are without the expectations of everyone else around you. Questions like what impact you want to make and what's important when it's all said and done. But I think that subconscious piece, and that's where a coach really comes in to help you kind of get below the surface.
That's really cool. I really like that. One of the things that I say too is like in life, problems are kind of like the ocean. If you're on the beach and you're constantly, every wave is like a problem, right?
Yep.
And they just keep coming, especially when you're an entrepreneur. You're always dealing with something. You're always dealing with a staff member or a broken, piece of equipment or whatever. And then the big waves, or when the storms come through, those are like the crises that you go through. So you're constantly having to deal with problems, and you're constantly having to get through them. And it is a struggle to keep your mind right and handle business and stay confident.
Yes.
And
handle
really
rejection and failure. And yes,
right?
They don't teach us this stuff in school of how to actually overcome it all in a healthy way.
Yeah. So how do you tell your people to overcome these types of things?
I think anytime, and I love your metaphor of the ocean and the waves.
Yeah.
But anytime there's those waves and the big waves, like there's always a lesson. There's always some sort of lesson to be learned.
Yeah. So one of the books that I've read, Positive Intelligence. Have you read that book?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That book is so good.
Yep.
But it talks about your saboteurs,
Yeah.
right? So my saboteurs.
Do you know what yours are?
Yeah. So my top 2 saboteurs is I'm a people pleaser, right? And
Yep.
I'm a hyperachiever.
Yep.
So basically,
So
I kind of, rather than taking my own interests in heart, I try to please people, and I tell them what they want to hear rather than being like critically honest with people. And I think that is one of the things that I know is a weakness of myself, so I try to work on it.
Yep.
And then as far as like the hyperachiever is concerned, I get a lot of my self-worth and confidence from achievement, from winning, from like doing different things and getting better and having small wins and compounding them. So if I like lose, or if I have a bad month, or if something goes wrong, I can really lose my self-worth because of it.
Yes.
So, and one of the things that I learned from that book, actually a couple of things really, is I look at, everything in life is a lesson, like you said, but who knows if this situation is really good or bad? And there's that old like Chinese proverb of how it talks about, the guy who breaks his leg on the horse and then doesn't have to go to war, and then his brother dies. And so like, initially breaking his leg was a terrible thing, but who knows if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it led to something better down the road, right?
Yes.
And another thing that I took away from that book a lot is like, no matter what happens to you, how can this opportunity be a good thing? And think of 3 ways that this situation or this opportunity can be a good thing.
Yep.
So I'll just look at it like if something really bad happens, it's like, okay, what good can come out of this?
Yes.
So I don't know if you kind of have your clients go through some of those tests and stuff like that.
I do. It's interesting you brought up the saboteurs, because I'm also a hyperachiever. I'm also a stickler is one of them.
Yeah, stickler is one of them.
And it's interesting because I notice, especially for entrepreneurs or people who are really successful or high achieving, you'd classify them as that, fall into those categories. A lot of their worth comes from working really hard and achieving. And so it's also probably our superpower a little bit.
Yeah.
But like keeping those in check to be able to like use the gift and not completely burn out and derail all the other parts of our lives that are important, because just being self-aware and being aware of those thoughts that, is this helpful or is this hurtful, because those characteristics can easily be taken too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they talk about in the book is like everybody's got the judge, right? The judge in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That like tells you.
I call her the angry woman in my attic.
Yeah. So I actually call mine JJ, but I call it Judge Jackass.
Yeah. It's helpful
right?
to name them
Yeah,
too.
totally.
Yep.
Because then you can like recognize it, see what's happening, and then try to steer yourself in the right direction. And like when you're dealing with anxiety or stress, it talks about using your 5 senses too to like identify the situation and really like get into more of like a meditation state and like just feel yourself like rubbing your fingers or like really hearing the sounds.
Yep.
And it goes to the 3-2-1 method too.
Yep.
Where you try to like see 3 things vividly, try to hear a couple of things, or like feel something as well.
Yes, everything is more complicated in our heads.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you get out of your head when something is like giving you a hard time?
Journaling and asking I think a lot of times we spiral, and I spiral to worst case scenarios and doomsday thinking, or thinking people are judging me more than they are, and having this spotlight on me where, what is everyone going to think? But really asking yourself, like, do I believe this to be true? Looking back at historical evidence of like, when have I like really failed and fallen on my face?
Right.
You probably can't find those times.
Yeah, we've always gone through everything that we've ever encountered, right?
Yes, yeah. And our brains like to keep us safe.
Yeah.
Yes, and in our comfort zones. And so anytime that we're being pushed out of our comfort zones, our brain goes to those worst case scenarios and goes to, I'm gonna fail and I can't. But it's only our brain trying to keep us safe and in survival mode. And I think that's important for people to understand, like, the psychology behind how our brains work, because it helps understand why we're having all these thoughts in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that with me, a lot of it is like just telling myself, I'm okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
I need to become comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And just dealing with life that way. How do you kind of do some of those things inside your head other than the journaling?
I think one thing, so I do a lot of public speaking now, and I've always been very afraid of public speaking. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
I get very nervous. And someone once told me, focus on your message, not yourself.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of the weight off of those, what is everyone going to think, when it comes to sharing your business and your message and sales and rejection. And then huge is knowing your values and defining your values. So for me, one of my values is making a difference. So anytime I'm being pushed outside of my comfort zone, whether it's in my business or being rejected, which happens when we're entrepreneurs, is going back to like, okay, does this thing align with my values? Yes. Okay. And it can just be this place to go back to when you feel scared.
Yeah.
And you need to make a big decision of, does this align with my values?
Yeah. I think that that's great. I know with me sometimes too, like, I take myself back in my mind when I meditate, if I need to, back to a resort that I stayed at in Cancun on the patio for my 40th birthday. And I just remember like seeing the waves, seeing the ocean, seeing the pool below, and like putting myself almost in my happy place, right?
Yeah.
So that way, and I like really like try to take that in when I was there. So that way I could go back there in my mind whenever I got into a bad situation or whenever I want to remember those things too. So I think that it really is like taking things in when they're good moments and going back there when you need it. And it's almost like keeping a reserve, right?
And taking back the control.
Yeah. Definitely. So I think that that's really good.
Yeah.
And I'm usually a realist, but I'm an optimistic guy.
Yeah.
I like to think of the good things in life, but it's it's easy to worry and be stressed. And like you said, like public speaking is a huge fear for you. So you just like get up and do it and conquer that fear and talk to people and think about the message rather than yourself.
Yep.
Like think about the value that you're giving to others. And that's really huge in business too. And I look at situations like that, like for example, doing this podcast in a sense that what if after this we were to die? Or maybe this is the last thing that we do in the rest of our lives, right?
It
Would we
sounds
be
morbid,
that
but
nervous?
it's so true.
You're right?
Yes.
Would we be that nervous, or would we really like sit down, be in the moment, and really take advantage of what we want to say, what we want to do, of each other's company,
Yes.
all of those good things?
Yes. It's like that idea of when it's all said and done, and it sounds morbid, but
Yeah.
when you're on your deathbed and you look back on your life, you know, what would look like a life well lived. And
Right.
it's probably those moments where you did this podcast and you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone
Yeah.
and you shared your message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest fears that I have is getting to the end of my life and meeting the person that I could have become, you know, and wishing that I would have been that person, right?
Yes.
And so it's like in your life coaching, business coaching, it's like, okay, ultimately, who do you want to become? What's the best version of yourself?
Yep.
How does that look like? And what do we need to do to get there?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, kind of go through some of your coaching processes in how you teach your clients to overcome their obstacles and become the best versions of themselves.
I think first it starts with defining success for yourself, especially as entrepreneurs. And I see this over and over again, where you eventually get to a point in your business where you burn out because you're chasing society's definition of success, and you're chasing numbers and the accolades and achievements, and you forgot to go back to why you started in the first place, and all these other parts of your life, like your family and your kids and fun. You know, it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah,
and we
the balance
forget
is
that.
difficult.
Yes, and I think we have beliefs around running a business and being in a career that it's supposed to be hard and it's supposed to be this grind. But really going back to figuring out what is success for me when it's all said and done, defining your values. And I think a huge part of it is just the day-to-day challenges of fear, and especially when it comes to sales, like when you're not being yourself, when you don't know your strengths and you don't know your weaknesses and the areas you can improve, and to be able to seek help in those areas.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us put up these walls trying to prove to everyone around us how, you know, great we are and that we're perfect and we got this. And being successful is not about that. It's about admitting what you don't know and being able to seek help in those areas, but also doing what feels right for you. And your business should feel exciting. It should feel exciting. It should not feel like you're shoving and pushing your way through, you know,
Yeah. It's like almost
big
being
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like being in flow state, right?
Yes.
It's like when time flies by and you're just having a great time and you don't notice that it's going by. But if it, you know, you're in a job or a career or a business that, you know, time's super slow and it, you know, you're looking at your clock all the time and you just are waiting for 5 o'clock to roll around to get home
Yep.
and get out of your miserable job. You know, I don't think that that's how, you know, us people were meant to live. And I still think too, it's
No, that's
gotta-
kind of a new concept of like
right.
work doesn't have, and I'm not saying running a business isn't hard. Running
Right.
a business is extremely hard
Totally.
and very challenging, and I'm constantly battling my own mind and
Yeah.
all of the things we're talking about, like we all struggle with.
Yeah.
But I think really digging into like those subconscious is this really the thing for me? Or am I just doing this because everyone else around me is doing this?
Yeah.
And that's where you really find the magic, is when you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I know one of my weaknesses and one of the things I hate doing is answering so many emails for whatever reason. Like I don't like doing it. I like meeting people like you and talking to people and like doing orderings and you know, creating new products and working on things that will actually move the needle
Yeah.
rather than like, you know, being in the grind or fixing equipment or whatever. So it's like knowing the why you do things and seeing the bigger picture help you get through a lot of those things. And so I can do the emails, and don't get me wrong, like some of the emails aren't bad or anything like that, but it is a grind, and it's consistent, and it's over and over, and it can get daunting and very overwhelming for sure.
Yes, I could imagine that helps you make decisions, and this comes up all the time with my clients, is knowing what you're good at and the things you enjoy. Then you can decide, okay, once you get to this point, what are things that I can outsource? What are things that I can
you can
automate?
delegate.
When am I my best? And that can feel crippling when you're a business owner and there's a million decisions to make, and
Right.
you don't know where your place is in the big puzzle.
Yeah. So, what are some of the clients that you work with? What kind of businesses do they have, and how many employees do they work with? Kind of walk me through some of the people that you work with.
So it varies. I work with a lot of new business owners who've been in business anywhere from 5 to 7 years. I often work with people who are kind of torn. I think we've all been there in life where you're at this crossroads of what's next for me, and you're having this thought of, should I go do this thing? Should I go work with XYZ? And so helping people find their path and their next step. I was there a few years ago. But yeah, I work with men and women. Some of my clients own construction businesses and are estheticians and massage therapists, and in property management, the industry that I used to be in. So that's where I found actually a lot of clients, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, just like sales and networking and like kind of figuring out where you fit in all that and what works for you. That comes up a lot
Yeah.
in the work that I do, is like finding sales and networking to be this like drag for a lot of entrepreneurs, and curious your advice on that.
Yeah. So, I think everybody's in the sales business, right? Whether you're selling yourself or you're selling a product, or, you're just like parenting your children. You almost have to sell it to them, right?
Yeah.
What your ideals are, what's the best for them, why they should buy, whatever. So I do think that sales is very difficult. And there are a lot of books out there that can help people and stuff like that. I am a relationship person. I like doing business old school style. So I like build relationships with my vendors, and I like to do business with the people that I know, that I like, that I see on a daily basis. I think that building the rapport with people is paramount in being a good salesperson in general. But I know that it can be very, very stressful for people that are in a sales position, and they have to have super thick skin.
Yes.
Because I say no a lot.
How do you handle rejection?
How do I handle rejection? So for me, that is a good question, because I think that I kind of just like play it off, and I maybe use humor in the rejection part, and I might think that, I'm not perfect at everything, and, I think that persistence is key. I think that we also need to adapt. So I stick with my routine, and I know the things that I need to do to be successful is showing up. It's having balance in my life with my family, my work, and myself. I know it's like getting my exercise in every day. I like to, drink my coffee in the morning, journal, meditate, affirmations, listen to positive, motivational videos. I do all of those things before I even head to work. So I think that like getting your mind right immediately from the get-go is crucial. And I think that it also starts the night before, when I try to make sure that I go to bed at the same time every night. I go to bed between 9 and 11, usually around 10 every night. I'm normally up between 4 and 6 or 5 o'clock every day. And then I notice that if I drink water in the morning, I stay consistent, and I put myself through hard things get easier, and I can handle them a lot better.
Yep.
And so like, it's like putting on your armor, right? It's like putting on your suit to get ready for the day, to handle whatever life's going to throw at you, and being prepared for it.
Yes.
And I really think that it all kind of stems with your mindset, which is what you were talking about before.
Yeah, I'm also hearing when those other buckets of your life are full, like your family and your kids and your relationships and your friendships, the work part feels easier.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, people have to work on themselves the most. Like, that's the one main thing that we can control. And people need to realize they don't need to be stuck in a bad job or a bad career or a bad business. You are the one that's handling things. You have to be the one that's going to fix it. Nobody's going to do it for you. I know you have a lot of obligations. I know you have a lot of responsibilities, but changing companies, changing cities, changing jobs, changing other things outside will affect your life a little bit, but nothing's really going to change the most until you change yourself.
Yes.
And so, and with me, it was like trying everything. Like I tried a bunch of different things until I figured out the formula that worked for me. And that's like you said, like knowing yourself.
And really knowing yourself. I
Yeah.
think we'd all like to think we read every self-help book.
Yeah.
And
What is your favorite self-help book, by the way?
gosh, this past year, The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weiss. Have
Okay.
you read it?
I haven't read that one.
Yes. It's
The Mountain Is You.
The Mountain Is You.
Okay.
Amazing. And it's all about how our brains and our minds work and self-sabotage. And she goes through the science behind why we make excuses, why we justify, why we are trying to prove to everyone else how perfect we are, why we play the victim.
Why were you try to be
And
the Joneses or keep up with them, right?
Yes, all these things that we all do, and we're all just too afraid to admit to each other that if we really sat down, like I can hear it right now. You and I have had a lot of the same struggles and a lot of the same, and you know, it takes a level of vulnerability to say like, hey, I do, you know, these things are happening and I'm going to address them. And a really awesome book. She's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite self-help book is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Okay.
Have you read that one?
I haven't.
She's an awesome writer, super funny, love how she writes, but it's one of my like probably top 3 favorite books, and I think that I've read it like 3 times.
What was
But-
like your big
So, I
takeaway?
mean, and I feel like it's the repetition of the right information that you have to feed your mind every day to stay on top of what you need to do to get it done, right?
Yes.
So like, you know, reading the same books, it's listening to the same podcasts, it's like doing the same meditations. It all pays off in the long run. But I would say with that book, you know, basically the biggest thing that I got out of that book, I guess, is just the gratitude for life, right? So having gratitude
Sounds
even
easy
for
enough,
your
right?
eyes, for your hands, for your feet, for, you know, your business, for your kids, for your spouse, for the littlest things up to the bigger things, or even just like being grateful for the flowers or for animals. And that's one of the things that I journal every day. Like I put 3 things that I'm grateful for. So that helps. And I think the attitude of gratitude goes a long way in helping you keep the right attitude. So, and one of the things that she puts in that book that I thought was really funny, it's like how she talks about, it's like God literally has our most precious resource fall from the sky, and people are still like pissed off and annoyed. It's like, what else do I got to do to wake these people up, to make them like excited about everything that they've got, right?
Yes.
So anyway,
I call that autopilot.
yeah.
And, you know, a lot of us get on this autopilot where we forget like the bigger picture of our lives, and we're trying to keep up with everyone else around us. And so I think it is important to have that time to ask yourself those big questions. And you mentioned something I want to go back to. It's something around habit building. And it's a big part of the work I do with my coaching clients is figuring out habits that are right for you. But I think a lot of us think that success is just going to be this linear straight line, and I'm going to reach this next goal and feel like I made it. And it's not. It's these seasons of ups and downs and being able to accept where we're at, but continuing to focus on baby steps in the direction that you want to go in. And I think we watch movies and see on TV and talk to people and think and see people at their peak and think, why am I not there? And that self-comparison piece comes, but that's how we become successful, is small micro shifts and baby steps and continuing to be disciplined and focused and belief.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of our society's biggest problem is we compare ourselves to other people that we see on social media, or we see on the movies, that we see
versions of people's lives.
and that's the best version of them, right? And when we really should be comparing ourselves to who we were yesterday.
Yes.
Right?
I love that.
And making sure that we just get incrementally better compared to where we were. And that's the thing too, like, I don't know if you've read the book too, The Gap and the Gain. Like, I think that one thing is, if we focus on, don't focus on the gap from where you are to where you want to be, right? Because that's a huge, if you're thinking big, that's a huge ways to go in everybody's life, right?
Especially if you're a hyperachiever. Like us.
Totally. And with the gain, though, you want to focus on the gain of where you started to where you're at now. And if you like look at that and be like, and actually reflect on where you've come, what you've built.
Yes.
That to me helps me, really when I compare myself to other people or who I used to be.
Yes.
Right?
Just to break that down, a helpful way to do that is to just write out your story as if it were an empowering one.
Right.
Like, and go over
You
all
are
of the
the-
things you've overcome to get to where you are, all of the challenges you faced and how you overcame them, and think of like what your best friends, how they see you and what they would view this like life. And when you think of it like that way, a lot of times we're so focused on all the times we messed up and the mistakes we made and how hard it was.
Right.
But when you really look back, I could imagine if you wrote out your story, you'd be like, damn,
Right.
like, I'm kind of awesome.
It's like write out your own hype video.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Be your own hype woman. Hype
And that's like, I always think about it too, like, we talk to ourselves in such a negative way. Is that how you would talk to your friends? Is that how you would talk to your kids? Is that how you would talk to your spouse?
Yeah.
Sometimes our defecating thoughts can really spiral everything out of control, and it can just be super overwhelming.
Yes. And that's a hard concept to like say, okay, you just have to catch all your thoughts and then reframe.
Yeah, it's just
them.
like think of something
Like,
different,
it's
right?
It's really not that
Yeah.
simple. And I think that's where a coach can be very helpful, is giving you tools like first just like noting what's even going on in your head in the first place, knowing that like I'm still doing this work and you're still doing this work. Like it's a constant, like I have thoughts that come up that are unhelpful. I think we read these books and we think it's going to be this like magic wand and it's like, okay, all my problems are solved and I don't have any negative thoughts. No, that's not
That's a
how our
wrong
brains
interpretation,
works. And
yeah.
it's this constant like, checking in with yourself and, what's there and what would be helpful and where am I going and are these thoughts helping or hurting that? But I think there's this belief that, which makes it feel complicated, that you can just like think positively and change your life.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of people have to kind of figure out what makes them tick, what makes them happy.
Yes.
And like you said before, what habits create positive mindsets for those types of people. So, normally when you work with your clients, how long does the process take, and do you like to build relationships with them over the long term, or kind of talk me through like the business side of those things?
Yeah, sure. So I have a minimum of 5 months. Big reason behind that is because part of my secret sauce is helping you understand from a psychology science standpoint how your brain works. Also figuring out what success looks like for you isn't just a one and done thing. You're going through a lot of different self-discovery type exercises and journaling a lot. I require all my clients to have a journal. So important. If you don't have a journal, it's so helpful. But so yes, we meet twice a month, and I take an approach to coaching that all of us have the answers we need within. And I'm not going to sit there and give you a bunch of advice and tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing, because only you know at the end of the day what feels right for you. And so a lot of it is also tuning into things like your gut and how certain things make you feel, and things we're not taught in school of like, inner sounds a little woo woo, but wisdom within me, and I know what's best for me. And that can be the most empowering thing, to finally know that you can trust yourself to make these hard decisions and know what's best for you. And I think that is a very much underrated thing in our society. And so a lot of it is me being a sounding board, me helping you see your blind spots, me asking curious questions so that you can get to the bottom of some of your subconscious thoughts and what's really beneath all that. And also to, tell you the hard things too, but be your cheerleader and believe in you.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's such good stuff. I really like everything that you're talking about there. And it really kind of hammers out the idea of, we need to spend time with ourselves to know who we really are. And we do have all of the answers inside of us if we can
it sounds so woo,
yeah,
but
it is. If we
really
can take all the noise out, right, and spend some time with ourselves, because we know, who our kids are, who our spouses are, who employees are. We never really spend time with ourselves anymore out in nature or anything like that, trying to answer tough questions and think about things.
Yes, think about our lives.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, so you'll do a 5-month program with these people, and I'm sure you see huge results in them in getting better, and probably just in their entire happiness and all of those types of things. Kind of walk me through some of that stuff too.
I always say most business problems are mindset problems. So yes, once we kind of lay that foundation of knowing your values and knowing what success looks like for you and what's important to you when it's all said and done, there is a shift of okay, then what needs to be subtracted and added to your business so that you have more time to spend with friends and have time doing those hobbies that you like to do and spend time with your family, and what things need to be automated and outsourced. And so it kind of shifts in that direction after we build that foundation. But yes, absolutely. I think it's extremely empowering to know that, especially for my clients, that they have the answers that they need within themselves, and it gives them this sense of confidence that okay, I can figure this out, and I'm not comparing myself to everyone else around me. And so
one of the things that I do to build confidence too, and I don't know where I read this or where I heard it, but confidence is made when you keep the promises that you make to yourself.
Yes.
Right? So I think that, you talked about the self-sabotage all the time.
Yes.
I feel like people get down on themselves for, doing the things or the promises that they told themselves. For example, we're in January right now, not keeping their New Year's resolution or whatever.
Yes.
People are really hard on themselves for not keeping those.
Yes.
But it's everybody's going to get off track a little bit.
Yes. You have to set goals that work for you too, and be willing to be imperfect about them.
Yeah. And talking about goals, what are some of your goals that you want to accomplish?
Some of my goals, I think I always go back to my values when I'm creating my goals for the year. And so I don't jump right into numbers, and I go back to all of these areas of my life that are important to me. And so right now, I have a big focus on my health, which is I'm in year 3 of running my business. And I also have a big focus on traveling and having fun. And so all of my goals aren't business focused. And I know that in order to show up as the best version of me, I have to tune in to those other areas of my life that also need attention.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I think that creating real wealth in life is having your life in the right spot when it comes to yourself personally. And I think that that's number one. Then it's your family life, your business life, your friend life, and bringing them all together and, really trying to be wealthy in those aspects of your life. And it really does make a big difference.
Yes. Yeah. I said that for a reason, because I think it's great to have
business goals,
specific goals. It's great. But to be able to be flexible, knowing that like our circumstances and lives are always changing, and it can really restrict us when we set too specific of goals.
Agreed.
And we hit this season of our lives and we have this idea for our business, and then we're too afraid to pivot because we'll look inconsistent. And
Yeah.
so that's why I talked about goals, kind of going back to the values piece of things, and being able to be flexible in those specific goals you set, I think is so important.
Yeah.
To your own innovation and your own growth.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds to me like the work that you're doing is very rewarding, and that you have some really good clients, and that what you're doing is bringing a ton of value to them. And I really appreciate you being here and talking to me, and I would definitely love to continue this conversation again and have you back and really kind of go over more stuff, because I can tell that you're an avid reader, that you are really working on your mindset.
And I feel like I'm getting the sense we only scratched the surface.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else that you would like to add with your business, or anything else that you do that affects people, or anything, like any famous quotes or anything that you would like to add for the viewers?
You would ask me when we were talking about the podcast, is like a quote that I love that I just share with people, and it just stuck with me, is you are more than you think you are, or you could only imagine yourself to be.
Yeah.
Yes, you are more than you can even imagine yourself to be.
Yeah, that's so good. And a lot of people don't realize what they're capable of, and we have to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt to complete challenges, to get out of our comfort zone, to accomplish great things, to have a sense of fulfillment, and really live a happy, positive, and purposeful life. So thank you so much, Casey, for being here today. I really appreciate your time, and I think that you're doing great things in the world. So keep up the good work. Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yes.
So cool. Thank you for Casey for coming out on the show. Being a business and life coach can be daunting at sometimes. You know, understanding the ins and outs of dealing with your mind and the psychology of other individuals and everything that goes on with life. I think that a lot of times everybody can get bogged down because there's so many different things pulling at us from different directions, but sometimes we just have to stop, think, reflect, and really understand that we've gotten through everything that we've ever, gone through in our lives. And life is very special, and we are very blessed and very grateful to have everything that we have. So having an attitude of gratitude goes a long way, and I know that she's doing great work with her clients, and I know that she's helping a lot of people out there. So thank you again for watching. Please like and subscribe this video. Send us a comment if you have any other information or anything. And remember, guys, get crispy.
Here's to 5 o'clock somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Here's to a good tan and a buzz with the good ones that we love. Here's to 2 for 1 on ladies' night. Here's to the 19th hole. Anchors down and bottoms up. It's almost time to start the show.